Let's bring in for analysis Dr. Reverend Anderson Jeremiah, lecturer in world Christianity, joining us from Lancaster University up there in the northwest of England, a place I know extremely well. Dr. Anderson, Reverend Anderson, thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure to have you on our programme. How important would you say the developments we're hearing about coming out of Abu Dhabi are on this trip?
This is very significant, given both visually and substantially. I think the Pope Francis has lived up to his reputation of very clearly articulating that there is no other alternative to peace. And he has made that abundantly clear, stating that he's there to bring peace and also to encourage everyone who's gathered there, including the top leaders, both political and diplomatic leaders in Abu Dhabi, to seek peace and work for peace.
Will the Pope's voice be heard? Because obviously we know the Pope plays a very key role in many issues diplomatically, and he travels to places and has his say. But we're going to a place where there's an involvement in the war in Yemen. The Pope's already made a call at the Vatican for a ceasefire in Yemen. Are you expecting any sort of development on that?
Yeah, it's very important to recognize that Pope is there, of course, as the leader of the largest Christian community, but also he's there as the head of state. So he's actually very effectively balancing both his religious leadership as well as diplomacy. And I think he has made it very clear during his speech that there is no alternative to justice and also freedom. And also he has called the leaders there to work for peace and humanitarian aid, and specifically mentioning that human beings have to demilitarize our heart. And I think you can't be any louder than that. And I'm sure there will be some response to that. And I hope that the politicians who are working in that area will respond to that.
In terms of the document that's been signed with the imam, I mean, clearly this is the Pope trying to bring some kind of tolerance between the religions to try to reduce the tension that clearly exists in this part of the world.
Absolutely. And I think it's very important to keep in mind that since becoming a pope, he has made several international visits, but out of that, 13 visits have been to Muslim majority world, and he has made interfaith and interreligious dialogue his top priority. And of course, UAE, compared to other countries in the Gulf region, has been far more provided freedom to people from religious minority communities. And as you probably know, and your reporter reported that in UAE alone, there are more than 13 churches. So definitely, I think he is speaking to a very welcome audience, but he also is quite aware that he's speaking to the world, and particularly to the Muslim communities around the world, to listen to his message of peace and brotherhood.
Indeed, and let me correct myself when I say there are religious tensions in that part of the world. There are enough religious tensions in Europe too. So clearly, let's balance the books on that particular issue, because clearly within France there are those kind of issues as well, very much in play. In terms of what will come forward from this and what will be the sort of lasting feeling about this trip, do you feel that this is the start of a different kind of relationship between Christians and Muslims?
Absolutely. I think it's very important. I think it's not just the Pope and the Grand Imam who's there, but actually there are more than 150 other religious leaders who are gathered there on this conference on human fraternity. Therefore, I think there is a very concerted effort from the Pope, as well as his like-minded leaders, to encourage different faith communities to work together. And if you can just remember, just last year he was in Cairo speaking in a similar occasion, encouraging people in that part of the world to work towards peace. So he's slowly building up an alternative process, and I would call it as a peace process that he is initiating, which many world leaders are refusing to take up. I think in that sense, Pope Francis has taken up a very important leadership in the world.
What is it about the man himself, Pope Francis? Many people talk about his humility, his different way of being a pope. Previous popes have been well, for want of a better word, grandiose, I suppose. People talk about this man being more humble, more normal, an ordinary guy. Is that something that you think that plays well into his narrative when he meets these people, when he's trying to sort of put forward what he thinks should be the way of going forward?
Absolutely. I think he's a people's pope in a sense, because he has served most of his life in some of the poorest places, and he has actually used that as the vehicle to communicate his message. Therefore, I think Pope represents some of the minority communities within Christianity, as well as the broader humanity, where he is able to actually represent their voice. And in that sense, he is able to bring that very humble humanity that he is representing to the highest table where he got to sit. And also, I think, just as you probably saw in the visuals coming out of Abu Dhabi, in the lavishness of the palaces, he basically arrived in a humble Kia Soul, in a small vehicle. So I think he's very conscious that how he presents himself, and I think that's the integrity that makes people listen to him, and he's able to actually transform much of the Catholic community as well as the Christian community in the global stage.
One final question, and obviously I can't leave this without asking a question about the scandal that's been dogging the church about child sex abuse. And clearly the way the Pope deals with that also governs the way people maybe regard him when he goes on these kind of missions. Is the church doing enough to combat the sins and the evil crimes that have been committed in the past? Are you happy with the way the Pope is dealing with that and trying to deal with that?
I think in that particular issue, the Pope has been tied extremely by the bureaucratic system of the church. But in his effort, I think he has made tremendous efforts to actually address many of these issues. But however, I think there are several hundred cardinals who look after these issues. But he has personally made sure, even when he was visiting Ireland, when the Prime Minister of Ireland challenged him right in front, he said that he is committed to bring justice to those who are abused, and also to bring to justice all those who committed those atrocities. So he has not minced any words in terms of the need for justice within the church, but the process of delivering it, as we all know, I think the church takes a long time to act. But there could be these issues of justice needs to be addressed much more swiftly, which probably making him in many ways impatient, if you ask me. But at the same time, he's making his efforts. But we have to see that the church sticks and stands by his message of justice and love for those who are vulnerable and abused, and also to bring to justice those who have committed those atrocities.
Dr. Reverend Anderson Jeremiah, lecturer in World Christianity at Lancaster University. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us.
Thank you.